Hey, all, good morning.
Yeah, good morning, sir. Hello.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, good morning.
Hello, Prakash, Rahul, Raja, and Vaibhav. Yeah. So let us wait
Good
for
morning, sir.
yeah. Let us wait for a few more minutes as this is first day session, right? Maybe others might join. Yes, Vaibhav, you want to say something?
Just I'm checking functionality.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, good morning, all. Uh, Let us start. Okay. So let me know, guys, if you have any audio problems or if you have problem in viewing the screen. And the participants are Prakash, Karan, Mahesh, Purna, Rahul, Raja, Ravi, and Vaibhav. Okay. So welcome to my session. Okay. So let us make these demo sessions little bit interactive sessions. Okay. Yeah. This course is for particularly who is working under Java, who is looking for Java or developer positions, who want to become a Java developer to build Java applications, right? This framework will help you to become a Java developer, a enterprise Java developer you can become after this course. The main motto of this session is to make you understand how to build Spring based web applications and using Spring how to build microservices also. Using all Spring modules, we will cover how to build Spring based applications. Either you want to use Spring in standalone applications or web applications or any distributed microservices applications. After this session, you could able to build any such application. So the prerequisites required to learn, right, before Spring. If you have knowledge of J2SE, which is core Java, knowledge and little bit about XML tags, right? How to write XML tags and all, and little bit about HTML, how to create simple web pages while dealing with the web applications. Okay, and if you know what is annotation, that knowledge would be enough or sufficient to learn Spring. Okay, so the basic core Java knowledge is mandatory. You should know J2SE, and if you know about XML or don't know also, that's not a big deal. You can easily understand XML and HTML and annotations also. While I'm dealing with annotations, if you are aware of what is annotation, that would be enough. Okay, so these are the prerequisites. If you are aware of these, those knowledge or that knowledge should be enough for you to understand Spring. Okay, so as I said, the main motto of the Spring framework is to make you enterprise Java developer. You can become an enterprise Java developer or a microservice developer. Once done with this course, you know, after this course, you can use Spring. You can use Spring for you can use Spring for any standalone applications, standalone or any web applications, standalone apps you can build which are running in single machine. If you want to make some products for medical shops or kirana shops or any retail market, so you can build such standalone applications which are running in single machine. For those applications also you can use Spring. And for web applications, if you want to build a kind of online store, a web app, you can build web app using Spring. Okay, all the features mainly required for web app, right? If you consider a web application, we put the logging, security, right? After security, web implementation, some kind of forms, and we need to show some list of products, and finally we should able to purchase that item. So all that things you should able to achieve using Spring. You could able to build web apps, and you can able to build microservices based applications. Microservices apps also you can build, which means which are divided into multiple modules. The multiple modules developed as a each module developed as a simple microservice and deployed in a separate server environment. So those microservices also you could able to build using Spring. You could able to achieve all this. And Spring is easy to understand. It's a easy framework to understand. It's not too difficult. It's a easy one, easy to understand and build applications. You can easily understand how to use, and you can build applications. Okay, we are going to cover multiple modules from the Spring framework, right? We are going to cover multiple modules which are from Spring framework. As I told you, we are going to discuss Spring framework along with Spring Boot and microservices also. Okay, so Spring framework is having the modules like Spring IOC and Spring JDBC and Spring ORM.
Sir, I have one question.
Okay,
Spring framework means Spring core. Is it right?
Spring framework means all the things which are there in the Spring.
But
It's a general
actually,
terminology, right? It's a general terminology. If something provided in the form of jar file, for using,
yeah, yeah.
okay, we can call it,
Servlet and
yeah, Servlet. Oh, yeah, of course, you can call it as a framework, and Struts is a framework.
uh, sir, I
So,
have one question. Means lots of people say once you start the Spring course now, then you should know the Spring core.
correct. This IOC is the Spring core. Okay, this is the core module. This is the core
Okay, right.
module. Yeah.
Mhm.
So this is the base module, right? We spend a lot of
Yeah.
time here to understand Spring Framework features, Spring core features. So once we understand with that core features, we can start developing applications. We can deal with databases using JDBC ORM, and you can add cross-cutting services or logging kind of services on the fly using AOP, and we can implement MVC, Spring MVC, which is for web application. Okay, and Spring Security, Spring Transactions, how to deal with transactions we can see. So from Spring Framework, we are going to cover all these modules. The first thing is, and the important one is IOC module. So from this module, you will understand how to deal with Spring, how to create Spring based classes, and how to configure them, all the configuration things. That everything we understand from here. Then thereafter, we will learn other features of Spring, like how to do coding using a JDBC style, and how to integrate with ORM tools and AOP kind of thing, and MVC security transactions. Thereafter, there is an advanced frameworks from Spring on top of Spring Boot implementation we have. Okay, so using Spring Boot, how to deal for building web applications, or microservice based applications we learn here using Spring Boot. They made it easy, right? Developer job, they made it easy in Spring Boot. So we will understand how to build web applications and microservice based applications using Spring Boot. So, but even Spring Boot also internally will follow all this. If you want to use IOC, JDBC, ORM, AOP, and MVC concepts, security transactions, everything you can achieve in Spring Boot. Before Spring Boot, we used to do little bit configurations, right? That all configurations, everything on the fly Spring Boot will provide with a small kind of property setup. So they made developer day very easy, simple. If you want to make any application, it's not a complex thing for developer. If you understand basics about Spring Boot, right, that would be enough to achieve any use case. So that much simple they made it. Yeah, we will see very in depth of each and every module. Okay, so these all are the modules which are going to cover. Okay, so from Spring Framework, these are all the modules, and Spring Boot we will learn how to build web applications and microservices applications. Okay, now let us try to understand where each module will fit. Okay, where we can use this each module, IOC module and JDBC, transaction security, MVC. When you want to build an application where IOC fits in your application, and where you use JDBC, where you go with ORM, AOP, MVC security and all, right? Let me show you this through. Let me show you this through MVC pattern. So MVC is a model view controller design pattern, right? Model view controller design pattern, which we in general we use for every application development. MVC architecture we follow, right? MVC architecture we follow for building any application. Model view controller pattern. Model view controller. This pattern we follow, right, for building any application. So model view controller, how it used to be or how it looks like. Let me draw through a paint. So when you want to build, as I told you, right, using Spring, you can build any standalone. Okay, you want to understand course duration. Yeah. So we cover all these topics, right? We cover all these topics up to here, up to transactions, right? These topics will be covered in next 20 days. Okay. It will take 20 days to cover all these topics, 20 working days. We will have sessions during weekdays only, 5 days for a week, Monday to Friday. So Monday to Friday, we will have these discussions. Monday to Friday, we will have these discussions. Will take 20 days to complete the basic Spring Framework modules. And here we have Spring Boot also, right? Spring Boot and microservices will take 2 weeks. So I'll take 10 days, 10 days here. Okay. So 20 working days for covering the 7 modules. And for Spring Boot and microservices, we will take 10 days. Okay. So which means overall 30 working days. You need to spend 1.5 month. Okay. 30 working days would be required, right? We can't run fast because people may not understand, right? As this is online session, right? We will go little bit slow initially while everybody getting onto the same pitch, right? Same speed. Once everybody achieve the same speed, we can run fast and we could able to cover them. Okay, but the main motto is each and everybody, everyone from this session, you should able to, you know, do or deal with these modules with a free hand. So as I said, standalone applications, you can build standalone or web app or microservices based applications. So whatever you build, we follow this architecture, MVC architecture, right? We follow MVC architecture for building our applications. So in MVC we will have multiple layers, right? Multiple layers in our application. One is presentation layer, view. From model and view, the first part is view, which is having all the presentation or designs. Your designs you can have in the view layer. You can put all your designs, forms, right? All your buttons, right? All your animations, whatever you need for your application. All the things we code in forms. All the things we code in a view page. So once you done with this view, if you want to send some data from here to application, right? First, who will receive your data once you submit from view? The data will received by controllers. So first we will have views. Once view, if you want to transmit something, right, from view, controller will get the data. Controller. So the controller job is, here views will have all this stuff. Controller job is, it need to read data. It need to read data, and it should do validations kind of stuff. If you want to do validations kind of stuff, and it need to verify security. Okay. So all this stuff controller should handle it. First it will do the security kind of checking, then it will read data. On top of the data it will do validations. Thereafter it will forward data to forward to model layer. Forward to model, the same data it will forward it to model layer, and it will get the response. Once after getting response, controllers are responsible to redirect response pages. Okay, so these are the controller jobs basically. Controller job, any controller, right? If you are aware of servlets, that could be fine. If not also, no issues. Okay, so these are the responsibilities of basic responsibilities of controllers. Okay, security and reading data, doing validations, forward it to model layer, and once after getting response, redirect response pages to whom? Again to the presentation layer. So these are the basic responsibilities of controller. These are all the basic responsibilities. So once done with this security stuff, reading data, validations, forward to model layer. So you need to implement model layer here. So model, yeah, is someone having a question? Okay, no issues. Okay, so model layer. So you have designs, forms, buttons, animations in view, and controller is doing security, read data, validations, and forwarding to model, and redirecting response pages. Everything controller is handling. And what about this model? What it is doing and what it is for? So model again will divide it into multiple parts. Okay, model can be divided into multiple parts here. Your model can have business logic. Okay, so where once after reading data and doing validations, right, actual business operations we need to execute. Business operations in the sense, let's say if your application is bank application, and if you are transferring some amount, all the business need to be handled, right, after transferring amount from your balance updates and balance calculations, right, and the percentage of payment charges, everything will be handled here in the business. All that business stuff will be executed in the business layer. So who will send the data up to this model? Your controller will send. And this model, in this model, right, the data will be transferred to business class. So business class will handle all the business operations. Only we do or we deal business logic only here, and it is not encouraged to add all the logic. It is only for business. All the business logic we implement here. Once done with this business logic, okay, once done with the business logic, if you want to persist data permanently into databases, we will have one more layer called DAO, data access objects. We say DAO, database logic only we will implement here. Only CRUD operations are encouraged here. All the inserts, retrieves, updates, deletes only encouraged in the DAO. So once after done with the business logic, right, you need to forward the data which you want to permanently save to the DAO classes. DAOs will handle CRUD operations. DAOs will handle CRUD operations. But for doing CRUD operations, on what basically it will do CRUD operations? On any database. Consider you have a database system and you want to deal with it. You want to do database operations on that database. For what reason we do database operations? To save data permanently, right? Permanently and securely. We use database system. I have a database system like Arcil, MySQL, DB2. There are many, right? Many databases we have. So I have a DB system here. I want to connect with it. From where? From DAO. Basically, DAO need to do all the CRUD operations. In general, right, we will not get direct connections. We will write some connection pools. Okay, any application. Generally, we will maintain some kind of connection pool here. We will maintain multiple database connections as a pool. So that connection pools also we will have here. Connection pool. So connection pool responsibility is it will get database connections. It will get database connections at the time of application startup. And when you start your MVC application, right, it will bring all the connections into pool. Whatever connections are available in the database, right, for your application, all that connections it will get into the pool. And whenever your business transfer your data to save, right, your DAOs will pick a connection from connection pool, and then they will start doing CRUD operations on database. They will do CRUD operations on your database tables. They handle CRUD operations on your database tables. This is how typical MVC architecture used to be, right? Any application. We will have presentation, and presentation will have all our forms and designs, everything. And once we submit the data from presentation, the data we will read through controllers and we validate it. And if you want to apply any security, we apply security before doing all that stuff. And we forward data to model. Again, model divided into multiple layers: business layer, DAO layer, and connection pools. So once the data getting into business will transfer that to DAO, and DAO will do CRUD operations on your database system. It will do CRUD operations on database system. Now in this architecture, right, in this MVC architecture, where you are going to use Spring. In this MVC architecture, where your Spring modules you are going to use. Now, right, let's start with views. For views, we can use a simple HTML code, simple HTML, okay, simple HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, or any any JavaScript frameworks or HTML frameworks like Bootstrap, right? jQuery, Angular, React, any advanced UI frameworks you can use. Okay. Along with them, you can use your JSPs also. You can use JSP, Java Server Pages. So all these, technologies or all these programming or all these scripts you can use to build your views. Okay, you can build your views using anything. It's based on your requirement. So once we submit this data, right, you need to handle controllers. You need to handle controller here to handle security, and for reading data and for doing validations and for redirecting the responses and for forwarding to model layer. What you can use here is Spring MVC. Okay, Spring MVC module you can use here for handling controller operations, and Spring security also you can use here. Spring security for doing security operations. These two modules you can use here up to controller layer for handling controller operations. You can use Spring MVC module and Spring security for handling security operations. These two modules you can use here. These two modules you can use here. And for normal business logic, right, you really not required any specific module. But as long as we are using Spring, here you use for your business layer, right? Use simple Spring core concept. Spring core concepts we use. Spring core concepts only we use for business logic, or Spring IOC you can call. Spring core concepts only we use. And for DAO, right, for doing database operations and for creating connection pools and all, we use Spring JDBC. If you want to do JDBC style of operations, right? If you want to do CRUD operations using JDBC style, we can go with Spring JDBC. Or if you want to do ORM operations, we can use Spring ORM. Spring ORM we can use. And we have Spring Data also. Spring Data. In advanced boot, they provided this Spring Data also we can use. Spring Data JPA. Again, it's a ORM kind of operation only. Okay, all these are for doing DAO operations and connection pools using, Spring JDBC or in ORM or Spring Data. We can handle connection pools also. Connection pool support also they have given to us. Okay, so MVC and security we use for controller layer, and Spring core we use for business. Okay, and if you want to handle any transactions, right, database consistency, if you want to maintain, we need to use transactions. Transactions also are part of business logic only. You need to handle transactions as part of business only. So you can use Spring transactions here. Spring transactions we can use here. Spring transactions. And on the fly, as I said, right, you may have thousands of business classes, right? Instead of keeping all the logging logic or any other services logic or utilities logic, right? If you want to apply utility logic on the fly to your business classes, kind of logging, I want to integrate loggers. I want to integrate loggers. I want to integrate loggers to my system. I done with my coding. I implemented many classes. Now my business or my client wants to add logger to application. So instead of going each and every class, consider if you have thousands of business classes here. Instead of going each and every business class and disturbing each business method, right? We write one simple logger implementation we write one simple logger utility implementation, and you can apply that code to all the classes. At runtime, you can apply this loggers code to all the classes. For that, we can use Spring AOP here. AOP, Spring AOP, using Spring AOP, right? You can do that. Spring AOP will help you to mix this logic or to execute a logic for many classes at runtime. So if you have any such services, we execute them on business at runtime using Spring AOP. So now we understand Spring MVC and Spring Security we use up to controller layer, and Spring Core we use for business. Not only for business, Spring Core we use everywhere. This is basically core module. Like your core Java, we use Spring Core everywhere. And if you want to apply transactions, we use Spring Transactions. And if you want to add any services after implementation of code, using AOP we can do that. And if you want to do CRUD operations, using Spring JDBC and Spring ORM, or by using Spring Data, using any of these, you can do CRUD operations. And basically, it's look like a web application, right? As I have HTML views and controllers and all. As this is a web application, if you consider, you followed this architecture entirely. You followed this architecture. You implemented views, you implemented controllers, and you implemented business, DAOs, connection pools, and loggers, everything you have done with your implementation. Consider if it is some kind of a small e-commerce store. Consider I have a online library or online bookstore. I have an online bookstore. I am selling my books here. So I built this online bookstore web app. I built my online bookstore web application. I built my online bookstore web application using Spring HTML and all this stuff. Where I should deploy this? Where should I deploy this application? Where should I deploy this application, and who will manage all these classes? Okay. So in general, right, if you are aware of servlets, we deploy web applications into we deploy a web application into Tomcat server. We use Tomcat server to launch your web application. Finally, we run this code. We convert this as a we completely convert this entire application which is using all these modules, right? We convert this application into a var file, online bookstore. Let's say if you name it obs.var, we'll convert into a var file, and we deploy this var into Tomcat, any web server, like a Tomcat. So the Tomcat job is just to take the request from use and forward it to controller. Okay, up to controller. And the Spring classes, right? You implemented everything using Spring MVC, security, Spring Core, transaction, JDBC, AOP, many modules you used here. So when you deploy your var, Tomcat is not responsible to manage all these classes, your MVC classes from controller, right? Whatever you implement classes. Consider my classes count is something around 500 classes I implemented. Around 500 classes I implemented for my application. Around 500 plus classes I implemented for my application, which includes your controller classes, right? 500 plus classes I implemented, which includes your controller classes and your transaction implementation, JDBC implementations, okay, AOP implementations, whatever it is. All these classes are not going to managed by Tomcat. Instead, what we do, we deploy var file into Tomcat. Tomcat will call IOC container. Tomcat will call a IOC container. IOC container. This is the integrated container in Spring only. Internally, it will call a integrated IOC container. It will call a integrated IOC container. This IOC container are responsible to manage your classes. So finally, Tomcat will call this integrated IOC container. This IOC container will do, or it will manage all your classes from here to here, right? From your controller to model, whatever classes you implement by using Spring, all that classes are going to run on IOC containers. Okay, so there is an integrated container we have from Spring core module, which is Spring IOC. We use IOC for managing all our MEC classes. Still, why Tomcat is required? If you follow Spring framework or any framework, right? Spring framework or any framework, if you build web application in Java, you need a web server. It can be a Tomcat, or you can use any other, right, open sources. We have Undertow, Jetty, or if you have application servers access like WebLogic or WebSphere, you can use any application server also like JBoss. It's all up to you, but you need compulsory a web container like a Tomcat or Undertow or Jetty. These are open sources. Okay, these are open source web servers. You can utilize them. You can download and you can use in your server. So this download is required until Spring framework. If you use Spring Boot, right, we discussed about few modules like Spring MVC security and these modules. If you use Spring Boot, here if you use Spring Boot to deploy this var, right, var or your application, Spring Boot will accept it as a jar also. You can build your online bookstore as a jar file also, as a jar file, online bookstore jar, and this jar you can deploy directly into Spring Boot embedded servers. Spring Boot is having embedded web servers. You can directly run on Spring Boot. Spring Boot, it has embedded web server like Tomcat. Default Tomcat is a embedded web server in Spring Boot. So you can deploy it as a jar file. You can deploy it as a jar file on Spring Boot embedded Tomcat. Still, this Spring Boot Tomcat also is going to call your IOC container only to manage all your classes. Okay, so whatever you use embedded Tomcat or you use external Tomcat or any other servers, by deploying it as a var file, okay, finally they are not going to deal with your classes. They are not going to deal with any of your controller or models. Who will deal with them? Who will manage them? Your IOC containers only. So we understand IOC containers are required to manage your controller classes and model classes. These are embedded classes only. Again, IOC container is not a separate, software you need to download and install. It's a simple class file only. It's a simple class only. We utilize this class. This class itself is enough to manage all other classes. Okay, so basically we run our application classes on IOC container. IOC container will going to trigger from any external Tomcat or any WebLogic kind of servers. If you go with Spring Boot, even you need not to download that servers and use them. Spring Boot is having embedded web server like Tomcat. You can use it and you can run your application as a jar file. So you run your application as a jar and that application is ready for utilization. Whatever online bookstore you implemented, right? You can register that online bookstore in a www.something onlinebookstore.com. There you configure your DSN or your application URL, right, which is running in local, and you can utilize your application for selling books. You no need to buy any infrastructure apart from the domain www dot something like hydbookstore.com from GoDaddy or any other providers. Apart from that, everything is open source here. You can use them as free. Okay, Spring is open source framework. It is for free. You need not to pay any single rupee for Spring providers. You can utilize all the enterprise features. But do you know before Spring how we used to implement them? There is a lot of infrastructure dependency. If you want to implement models, we would be implementing them from EJBs. Okay, to run EJBs, we need to buy application servers, and to use EJB, we need very skilled developers. It's very complex to write. Whatever development time you spend for designing online bookstore here, if it is considered, the developer effort time is like 5 days efforts required. In EJBs and all, if you want to implement, at least 15 to 20 days time you need to spend, and your application is not even you know manageable thereafter also. If you want to do small changes also, lot of changes we need to do. So if you use Spring, it's very easy framework. You can build it in very less time, and you no need any special infrastructure. If it is EJBs, you need to spend a lot of time. You need very skilled developer, and you need infrastructure support also, like WebLogic, WebSphere, JBoss, application containers you require, right? So to overcome the problems of EJB only, Spring entered into the market, and it made Java development or Java application development easy, maintainable, and very cost effective. Hope you understand, right? Why Spring is. Any questions so far?
Okay, sir. Are you going to cover Spring Boot with Hibernate?
Yes. I mean, you are
Okay.
expecting Hibernate classes also from Spring.
Yes, sir.
I'll give you a few examples, and if someone really wants or interested to learn Hibernate, I'll track that as a separate session. Okay, but
Okay.
really need not to worry. I'll give you a few example. Maybe as everybody going through this pattern, right, without having Hibernate knowledge or separate Hibernate understanding, I'll spend 2 sessions. Okay, I'll spend 2 sessions to cover Hibernate. Okay, quickly
Okay.
I'll go through each and every example, and I'll show you Hibernate also. But when you enter into Spring, and when while you're using Spring data and all, right, you really need not to care about it. Spring data made
Okay.
developer life easy. You need not to implement anything. You just need to focus on your business. That's it. Everything on the fly Spring will provide. Every day we will go with one, real scenario, and we deploy and we access them in a real time, and we will see, okay, I'll deploy it in a web for internet access. We all will access them and we will test them. Okay, we will get end-to-end knowledge. By the end of these sessions, you could able to be, you know, a developer who can handle everything end-to-end. Am I clear? So just share your email IDs. Okay, just share your email IDs in the chat. So yeah, if you can share your email IDs, what I will do on a regular basis, whatever we discuss here, right? The videos and the screens which we draw here and the examples, everything will be provided to you. From this session, we are going to provide session recordings until last. I said 30 sessions, right? 30 session videos will be provided to you, and 30 sessions examples also will be provided to you, along with notes and the class drawings also. Okay. Still you need any support also, I would be available. You can reach out to me anytime. I'll be reachable to you.
Sir, I have one question. Means if there is no knowledge Spring Boot with Hibernate, can we develop Spring Web application, enterprise application?
For sure. Yes. Spring Data, right? As I said, Spring Boot with Spring Data. You need not to worry about what is Hibernate, what is ORM. It's really not
Okay,
matters to you. CRUD operations, it will handle. You don't need to bother about it. Okay. Having core Java knowledge is enough. Believe me, and jump into this course.
okay,
As I said, right, I'll give one ORM example. If you want to, in some scenarios, you may need to implement core Hibernate logic. Maybe for few applications which are built, before Spring Boot, they might directly return Hibernate logic. If you jump into such
okay,
applications, yeah, maybe there you need the knowledge, right? For that sake, we will spend 2 sessions, so that 2 sessions are hardly enough to understand the complete Hibernate.
okay, okay,
And you can go through my videos also, which are available in YouTube. Durga's
okay, okay,
Hibernate videos. There are 40 plus videos we have. You just brush up through it. Any more questions? Okay.
means Spring Boot and microservices enough to develop the web application, right?
Yeah, microservices. Using microservices, you can build web applications, of course. Yeah, which are
Okay,
distributed applications. Basically, the problem, how arises, right? Everybody started using Spring or other servlet frameworks, and they build many
hmm.
modules within a single application. If you consider, one of my application is having many classes, so many classes, it has lot of load. We are deploying it as a single application in a single server. When there is a huge request, right, my machine or my server is not capable to handle that many requests. As if you buy a server which is having 100 GB RAM and 10 TB of hard disk, still if your server is big also, it may not be capable to handle that many requests. So if you break it down into multiple services and if you deploy into multiple machines, application performance will increase. You can scale it. Okay. And easily we can deploy multiple teams instead of working one team on entire one application, right? You can deploy multiple teams on each separate service or on each module, and they could able to manage their services. Okay, we will discuss, okay, why microservices we should go with, and what are the challenges existing we have. Okay.
Uh, Hi, Naveen. Good morning.
Good morning.
It's to become a full stack developer,
Hmm.
from the backend point of view, is Spring Boot and microservices are sufficient, or do we need any other knowledge too?
Apart from this, we don't have anything in the market as of now. uh, Completely Spring occupied almost 99.9% from the Java market side.
Okay.
Okay. Still, if you ask me, there is, out of millions applications, there are one two applications on Struts, one two applications on JSF, which are already built, right? They are also migrating to Spring. It's
Okay.
pretty hard manage those frameworks. What we realized, okay, since 10 years, I even aware of other frameworks, right? you
Yeah.
know, to spend the application development time, right? Even in struts or other JSF, if you are going to spend 20-30 days for development, here 5 to 6 days, efforts wise, developer need not to worry about that infrastructure configuration, everything Spring provided. You just need to focus on your business only. So the business implementation hardly it will finish in hours. So why people will choose other frameworks then? Okay. So for building any
Right.
enterprise or microservice application, Spring is sufficient.
Yeah, along with this, what I mean is, yeah, your answer is very much clear for me.
Hmm.
And along with this, to become a full stack developer from front end point of view, there is
Yeah.
Angular JS
Yes.
and other things also required. So,
Yes.
what do you suggest to become a full stack developer
Yeah.
along
Of
with this
course.
course? What should I learn?
Correct. So when we move to microservices, right? Basically, we are not maintaining web component from our application. So if you see this example, online bookstore, I told you that create it as a WAR file or jar file, which includes your pages also. But when it comes to microservice based application, right, we are maintaining up to controller part only. Presentation layer, we are giving it to other parties like Angular or React. They can develop and they can deploy into separate server. And from there, they could able to access our controllers by using REST calls. Okay. So if you want to be part of both front end implementation and back end implementation, or if you want to be a technical lead for the entire project, which includes both, or if you want to be a associate architect or architect for your application, it's good to having the knowledge of Angular and React also. But there are many positions only for backend developer. If you get into such position, okay, so it's better to move either backend or front end. If you want to become a full stack, you need to handle all this stuff. You need to
Yeah,
learn
got it.
Angular and React both, and you will be become a some kind of technical lead or kind of associate architect in that position. Okay,
Okay. Per day, how much time I mean, this session will be like
1.5 hours.
8:30 to 9:30 or
1.5 hour I'll spend.
up to 10?
10 o'clock.
Yeah.
Do you have any
Yeah.
constraints? Many of you
No
might be
concerns.
going to offices.
No issue that for me.
Yeah. So I'll try to deliver a quality of content here. Okay. Instead of quantity of content, I'll deliver quality of content, which is really required and which is really matters for from the development point of view. All the topics we will cover here. Okay, with a quality and with easy understanding. Okay, step by step I'll show you in the session so that it's very much easy to you understand and apply wherever you want. Okay, from scratch we will discuss, right? So you could be getting into that comfort level. And if you guys have any problem also in the discussion, or if you have any understanding issues also, you can stop me wherever you have that problem, and we will spend some time to discuss over the topics also after class. I'll spend some extra time for you to make you the topic understandable again. And if anything, right, like interview questions kind of thing also you need, I'll support you. Each topic wise, once done with the topic, I'll post you interview questions also. But it's really not matters to you once under, you know, going through these sessions, you should able to answer any questions. We'll do that kind of practice also here. Okay. I'll ask few questions from the topic and I'll expect answers from you. If not, I'll explain you once again. Like that, we'll handle this session so that we'll get at least to the conclusion of for the day. Anything else apart from it?
Yeah, I think
Sir,
my mail ID is
there is
missing
one.
there. Please add my mail ID also because I just have pinged my mail ID.
Okay. It's your
Sure.
Purna. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Sure. Yeah, someone have a question?
Sir, there is no need to learn REST API, React, this kind of tool. No?
React JS, you are saying?
Sorry.
You are calling React REST API and React?
Yes.
React means what? React JS, you are saying?
Just REST API and
No, not required.
React,
Just don't,
not required. No?
yeah, don't go into any other topics. Nothing is required, right? As I said, the Spring Boot made everything easy. Yeah, of course, I'll tell you there what is REST. Okay. Uh, all the open source frameworks, whatever we have from the market, right? On top of their framework, Spring provide integration. Okay, and Spring provided some templates
Okay.
also. So we just need to copy the templates and we need to add it in our application. That's it. From there, it is going to take care.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
But one of my friends suggest me lots of topic you should cover. So that's why I'm confused. That's why I'm asking.
don't confuse. Come with clear mind here. So just keep
Mm-hmm.
your core Java knowledge, OOPS, concepts knowledge, connection, collections, and what else? Simple what is method, what is constructor. Just come with that knowledge. Okay.
Okay.
Just clear your minds before my sessions so that whatever content I'm delivering, right, you will not confuse with other things what you have in your mind. Okay. Just I'll conclude,
Okay.
right? I'll give the conclusion also. I'm not going to give a topic and uh, leave it for you. I'll conclude the topic also. Why this topic is required and where we are using. So if you get that conclusion, there won't be any confusion for you.
Yes.
Okay. So anything from Ravi, Raja, Rahul, Dilip, Prakash, Kiran, you have any particular requirements from any one of you? Do let me know. Okay, if you want to learn like a streaming also, I'll cover. I did for myself a video streaming using Spring Web Flex. So if you have any such separate topics, right, let me know, like Spring Batch. We can discuss them, but which are really not required. Maybe for few cases, in few scenarios, we need to utilize them. I'll give one example on that other topics which are not part of our content. Okay. Hmm. I think that's all for today. You guys can all for today, and we will connect tomorrow. Okay. So good day for all of you. We'll catch up tomorrow,
Yes.
same time.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Bye.